Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes and I'm here for the halftime bulletin with Sean Conley, who is dialing in all the way from Australia. We'll have a wee chat about that first half. So far, so good, Sean.
So, yeah, certainly in terms of the result. There's been spells for both teams. We looked like we had them absolutely rattled and against the ropes, and that we were going to start racking up goals about 10, 15 minutes into the game. And then Joe Hart has a bit of a shocker, and that kind of gave them a bit of encouragement. And Sevco had a good 10-minute spell at that point. So it was, I guess it was even in terms of balance of play, but Maeda that capitalised on the mistake from the Sevco's greatest striker, £20 million player. And that's been the difference really between the teams. I don't think we've really forced a save out of Alan McGregor, and Joe Hart's made a world-class save from a chance that came from his own mistake. But either way, it was a really, really great save to tip that Ryan Kent shot into the post. But yeah, it's kind of what I actually think we've been more comfortable than I was expecting, even though we've not been consistently comfortable.
No, I get every single bit of that. We'll be talking about some of the chances, or there was a period in that first half where I felt that the possession was in Rangers' favour. I mean, the word dominant was used. I wouldn't go with that. I just think they got a period of possession in that first half. We'll start off with Maeda's goal. He is, flavour of the month at the moment. We spoke about him before the game. We spoke about the fact that Moy would be disappointed that he wasn't in the starting lineup. Maeda certainly was. I said during the week he was undroppable, Sean, and he comes through with, by the way, what a goal. Yeah, there's a mistake there by Morelos, but when you consider what Maeda has to do, what a fantastic, composed goal that was.
Totally right, man. Because you're right. He's got possession. He's caught them goal, but he still has to beat two players and then the goalkeeper. So he has done it, and it was a really great goal. One of those ones that we'll remember. We always have fond memories of any player that scores at Ibrox, and if we manage to attach 3 points to that, then those goals kind of become legendary through time. So hopefully that's one of those that we remember for a long time.
No, you're spot on. I mean, even Tony Cascarino got a mention during the week. So, yes, if you score at Ibrox, you are remembered forevermore. Francisco Weldenino comes in to wish us a happy new year. Same to yourself, Francie. Still feel we can go up a few gears. I get that sense as well, Sean. I think Celtic, right, even that wee period, and I think it might have been as many as 10 minutes, that wee period within which was the Joe Hart mistake, which he more than made up for. I think we dealt with everything they threw at us. I think there was moments where Carter Vickers was tremendous defensively. I think Johnston, who we'll get onto as well, did very, very well. And we were under a wee bit of pressure, but everything they threw at us, I think we dealt with it. But I do agree, I think we can go up a gear.
Something that was actually game-changing that you've not mentioned yet was Greg Taylor going off injured. I was surprised. I was expecting Bernabei to come on, and when Juranovic came on, I was like, okay. But to be totally honest, Juranovic has been a man down out there. There was one attacking play in about the 36th minute I've got written down here, where Hatate, who's been probably our best player, was on the overload with Maeda, and at that point the left back should be supporting that overload, and the play just completely broke down because Juranovic was nowhere near it. And then he's been poor defensively, he's been poor positionally. It seems like a poor decision right now that he's on the pitch, and if he keeps up at that, I don't know if he'll finish the game.
Well, that's an interesting one because you're right. There's a couple of wee things around about the Taylor departure. Firstly, you're gutted because he is, in terms of his form, he's in the form of his life at this moment in time. When he's on the deck and Morelos is allowed to go up and shout obscenities, I'm not quite sure what he was shouting, but it wasn't, "Are you all right, Greg?" It wasn't a Kyogo style going over to make sure the player was okay. And Beaton's there and he doesn't do anything. I'm not going to get bogged down with refereeing because there's not been much flashpoints, but you've got to deal with that situation. But Taylor goes off, and I'm like yourself, I'm really surprised, and I'm thinking, right, we know that Juranovic made his debut at left back at Ibrox, but as Stephen Sloan says, who agrees with yourself, Juranovic does look well off it. And then you're in a situation where you're reluctant to take him off, but in terms of his performance, it has kind of been that bad that, generally you would take him off. But I don't think it's going to work if you take a player off that you've put on. It's happened in the past. David Boyle, you can see why Juranovic was not started. He is so off the pace, it's unreal. I'd nearly sub him at half-time. And Johnston, again, it leads us on to the performance of Johnston on the other side as well, Sean. For a debut, I think he's been solid. He's been composed. He wants the ball all the time. And I think it goes back to the discussion we had at the beginning where we said, Angel normalised this fixture for Johnston. And I think Johnston's played like that. He's not been overwhelmed. He's not had any flashpoints. He's been involved. And I think his link-up play with Forrest and O'Reilly has been excellent in that first half.
Yeah, I think having Forrest on that side has really helped him. There's been so many times where Forrest has covered, otherwise he covered, because as in Forrest has facilitated the overlap, I should say, rather than covered for him. And there was one particular move where he lets the ball run across his body and completely takes a player out of the game, and it was brilliant. There's a couple of moments where he's been kind of made decisions or hesitated, which make me just feel not anything against his ability, just makes me feel like he's not quite up to speed with the system yet in the way that we want to play. But he's actually, apart from that, he's looked great in terms of his desire, his composure, his ability, his touch, his all of those things has his real promise, the sort of promise immediately that we've not really seen from Bernabe until midweek, and he's looking like a good signing so far. After 45 minutes, if you can say that.
No, he definitely does. Bernabe, what does it say about him? What does it say about the confidence shown in him by the gaffer that he didn't go for a fully fit Bernabe and he's playing Juranovic out of position? Yeah,
it's a surprise, especially since Postecoglou specifically name-dropped him after the Hibs game midweek. So I was expecting to see him. It is a surprise, as you say. But Bernabe, to me, when he plays, looks like a winger who's trying to learn to play fullback. And even so, I still think he would have done a better job than what Juranovic has done in the half hour that he's had, or 25 minutes.
It looks as though, Ange, I'm not saying we're playing defensively, but it looks as though he is going for players with defensive attributes, and Maeda with a work rate, and Forrest, who I think is better than Abada in that respect defensively. And I'm going to get on to Forrest in a moment because there's a few commenters not too keen on his performance in the first half. And then Juranovic, I agree with you. I don't think Bernabe's shown enough defensive quality so far. That's maybe why Juranovic has been introduced. Stephen Sloan actually thinks that Jota should come on for Forrest. And Vinci 3, Lawrence got his wish. He did. He actually thought that Forrest would start, and he did. Wonder if he wishes he hadn't. I don't think Forrest has been as bad as all that, although I get what Stephen says with regards to Jota. Great weapon to bring on, as is Abada, because I'm certainly not at a stage where I want Maeda to go anywhere.
Well, look, Abada and Jota should, barring injuries and red cards, they'll be on 60-65 minutes. But what for? And that, if we're still building up at that point, that's perfect for them, because Sevco are going to be pressing the game, chasing a goal, and that's going to give them space. But as you said, Forrest and Maeda have done an outstanding job of covering defensively. I get... Again, I see why people think that, because he's not as much of an attacking threat as someone like Jota or Abada is when they're on form. But what they have done off the ball has been really great today. O'Reilly has been great. I thought Hatate has been man of the match for me so far. He's been so powerful, strong, composed in possession. He's just seen everything so well.
What I love about him, Sean, is the fact that, you know, he's willing to take a risk with the pass. And that sometimes can put you under pressure, but when it comes off, he's the type of player who's going to create a chance, and I think he will in the second half. O'Reilly was in the discussion points before the game because he got the nod, I guess, over Moy. But again, I was watching O'Reilly's performance in that first half with interest. I think his defensive capabilities have shown up really, really well as well. And I don't think we've spent as much time in the final third, particularly in the second half of that first half, as we would have liked. But O'Reilly, if given a chance, could really be the one that creates a chance. And I think that when you look at Johnston and O'Reilly being the two players that have got the nod in the starting lineup, and so far has been proven right. His choices have been absolutely spot on, haven't they?
Yeah, we've certainly dominated that midfield. When we get the triangles going with Hatate and O'Reilly, we've been going around Lundstrom and Kamara as if they're not there, and that was the point of them playing two defensive midfielders, was to try and disrupt that, and it's not worked for them. O'Reilly, apart from even being well involved in those triangles, he's actually had a good bit of drive. He's been taking players on. some have been having to resort to fouling him. I could see some people maybe coming out and criticising the lack of incisive attacking play, but realistically, in terms of keeping possession and controlling the pace of the game, they've been great. To be honest with you.
We've been in control. And like I said before, that wee spell, Sean, where I just felt Rangers were getting a lot of possession, they were putting us under a wee bit more pressure. I think that we dealt with it. The Joe Hart save, you quite rightly said, was phenomenal. You know, it was a tremendous save, because at that moment the game changes if that's a goal for Rangers. And I know the obvious, but that was within that period of possession. It was in that period that Celtic weren't really in control of the game. But by God, we shouldn't have been in that position, because Joe Hart had all the time in the world and he's dilly-dallied a wee bit. If I've got one comment, one criticism to make, it would be that. He obviously made up for it. But I thought he had kind of ridded himself of that. I've not seen as much of that this season as last, for example, Sean. But we put it down as a one-off.
Well, we had it in the European game as well, didn't we?
We did. Leipzig.
But apart from that, it was, And look, that's the risky play when you play that system. And it's so far, we've only paid that price once. And even though we almost paid it today, you just hope when it does come, it doesn't come in the big games. It comes in the ones that don't matter. What I would like to see, I think within, I don't know if they'll make any changes at halftime. If they don't, they will within the hour, because they are going to have to chase it. So Kamara is going to come off at some point, and they're going to introduce some Scott Arfield, basically. And that means that someone like Kyogo, he's probably going to be off at that point. It seems like, in hindsight, you'd almost be saying Kyogo should be the one coming off the bench, when there's more space to operate, because he's just not been involved enough. Everything's been in the triangles and out wide, and Kyogo's just absolutely starved. And that's the sort of thing where, I don't even know if Giakoumakis would do any better, but our strikers are. I think Kyogo had one half chance where he had a fresh air swipe, but other than that, he's just really been not involved.
I felt for him in that first half, because, you look at his work rate, that's always unquestionable. Stephen Sloan comes in. It is an option, of course. I think Giakoumakis in the past has performed really well against Rangers. He seems to stretch that back line. He gives him a hard time. Whether or not he's going to be penalised as often as he is domestically for going in physically and going toe-to-toe with his contemporaries in there, I'm not too sure. But I don't think it'll happen at half-time. We know that Ange has made changes previously at this stage of the game, but will he be so bold? I've got to say, thanks everybody for getting involved so far in the half-time bulletin. 1,100 strong on the live, which is absolutely tremendous. Be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, because our YouTube channel now provides exclusive Celtic content as well as streams, fully produced interviews and features as well. And while you're on the YouTube channel, have a look at Celtic Down Under and get subscribing on there as well. Our friends in Australia are growing, and they're growing rapidly, and it's great to see. Now, personal Jesus, we may be winning. Depeche Mode fan, perhaps. We may be winning, but this football has been poor far too often. Forrest, absolutely shocking for someone with his experience. I don't think there's been moments of the game where you'd say, oh, brilliant by Jamesy, but I just think, it's been a more subtle kind of impact that he's had. I think that he's there in many ways to protect Johnston behind him making his debut. And it really wouldn't surprise me if he is one of the players that comes off for the likes of, let's say, Jota or Abada, because it's certainly not going to be the two wingers, I wouldn't have thought. Giakoumakis up top for Kyogo. I get that move as well, because it's going to give them a different challenge entirely. It allows us, I guess, and I don't mean hoofing the ball up the park, but it's a different ball you play to Giakoumakis, because it just sticks to him. He's very good at playing with his back to goal. It sticks to him. These are the changes that you might make. But over the piece, Celtic are in control. We're winning the game 1-0. And, the only criticism I had was for Joe Hart there. But he made up for it, Sean. We're going to play you out with our charity single, because 1,000 of you are watching. You may not be aware, we're raising cash for St Mary's. It's not just for 1 week, although it did top the iTunes rock chart at number 1, which was astonishing. You don't get a platinum disc for that, unfortunately. But every time you download it, every time you stream it, you're raising cash for the birthplace of Celtic. And the link for that is indeed underneath this video. We will play you out. But Sean, in terms of your prediction, are you going to stick with your prediction? Or indeed, are you going to change it for the second half?
I'm going to continue to be pessimistic so that I can be happier if we do get the win and stick with the one each. But I really hope that we get another one and finish 2-0.
I'm going to go 4-0. I don't know if it was 4 or 5 minutes that Maeda scored, and that might be the sign. That might be why I jolted up at 4 this morning, or maybe it was the excitement of this game. We're going to play it out with the Wakes featuring Carly Connor, and we'll see you at full time. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.
Over a century has passed since we first began our journey across the sea to find the glory in the dream. Just a tailor and a joiner and a brother built our team. Greeted sometimes with hostility, but more often with the light. The boys who rise and had to clear through troubled skies. After constant days of struggle, they arrived in paradise. This feels like heaven. This must be the dream. This feels like paradise. The best we've ever seen. The best we've ever seen. Even through the lean years, our support would flock in thousands. Countless trophies stand displayed for all to view. By side, brothers, sisters, we're united, and our children do the same. This feels like heaven. This must be the dream. This feels like paradise. The best we've ever seen. The best we've ever seen. The above club was formed in November 1887 by a number of Catholics in the East End of the city. The main objective of the club is to supply the East End conferences of the St Vincent de Paul Society to support those in the missions of St Mary's, Sacred Heart and St Michael's. Many cases of sheer poverty are left unaided through lack of means. A football club will be formed for the maintenance of the dinner tables of our needy children.